Imagine you were given some task to carry out at work over 3 years ago. Not only did you fail, but you managed to make matters spectacularly worse. Or you'd agreed to a fairly major building project at your home, and all this time on, not one brick had been laid. In fact, you hadn't even been able to agree to the damn plans. It's safe to assume you could expect the sack, divorce, or a dwindling bank account. Not so if you were part of Team May, the biggest bunch of laugh-out losers since England's opening batsman. Because the gang that couldn't shoot straight and from day one conducted Brexit negotiations on bended knee and with cap in hand, were rewarded with a battery of gongs in Theresa May's farewell honours list. Chief Brexit bungler Ollie Robbins got a knighthood, and former Chiefs of Staff Fiona Hill and Nick Timothy, who presided over the 2017 election that destroyed Theresa May's authority, got CBEs. Mrs May said she, quotes, retched violently when David Cameron did a similar thing a couple of years ago. This week, I knew how she felt.
Theresa May's really going to live to regret that retched violently quote, isn't she? I think it's a relief to see that we can actually agree about something.
Sure.
Nick. Although I have to say, I find it interesting how Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill, Theresa May's two advisors, were kind of the bogeyman this time last year. They were the ones being blamed for everything that was going wrong. I have to say now, looking at Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings, they don't seem so bad in comparison. But I fully agree. I think that the way that the honour system rewards political advisors is incredibly difficult to square with the idea of a modern democracy. It just stinks of corruption and nepotism. But I would add to your list of grievances the cricketer Geoffrey Boycott, because awarding an honour which is meant to represent a person's valour, that's traditionally what it's supposed to symbolise, to somebody who has a conviction for domestic violence, for assaulting a former girlfriend, is completely at odds with the values I thought that we, and Theresa May, who's behind this honour, adopted as a nation. And I think it's just another example of how out of touch that system of reward is with the values we have as people.
Let's see if this new spirit of accord stretches to young Femi. What do you say? Is there a future for the honours system?
Well, for starters, I just want to say I back you 100%.
There we go. Very worrying. A new spirit,
I think it's ridiculous that you have one of the most unpopular people in the country deciding who should be put on a pedestal. It is insane. And for Geoffrey Boycott, after what he did, after his attitude to it that we've heard since, it's horrendous.
Can I just, because we've been talking about Geoffrey Boycott, make sure everyone understands the allegation, but also what he says about it.
Well,
so, the reason that people have an issue with Geoffrey Boycott being awarded an honour is because he does have this conviction in France for having assaulted an ex-girlfriend. And Adina Clare, who's the co-acting chief executive of Women's Aid, says celebrating a man who was convicted for assaulting his partner sends a dangerous message that domestic abuse is not taken seriously as a crime. It is extremely disappointing that a knighthood has been recommended for Geoffrey Boycott, who is a convicted perpetrator of domestic abuse. But Geoffrey Boycott, it is important to say, denies, even though he was convicted in a French court of law, he denies that conviction. And this is what he says.
I have to live with it, and I do, because I'm clear in my mind, and I think most people in England are, that it's not true.
Although the chief executive of Women's Aid has said celebrating a man...
I don't care a toss about her, love. It's 25 years ago, so you can take your political nature and do whatever you want with it. You want to talk to me about my knighthood, it's very nice of you to have me, but I couldn't give a toss.
Is that really the behaviour of a knight of the realm?
Let's get Andrew in. Let's come back to the political aspect of this,
I mean,
which I think is more
apart from the fact the honours list was a reward for failure, because Mrs May will go down in history, in my view, as probably the worst Prime Minister since David Cameron. And if Boris Johnson goes out shortly, he'll be the worst Prime Minister since Theresa May. But if I go into the House of Lords, and I do quite often, I'm struck by how many ghosts from the past are still hovering around in their 80s, going there to keep warm because it's safe putting the central heating on at home, getting their £300 tax-free. It's a gravy train, and Mrs May should have learnt from David Cameron's resignation honours list, which badly tainted his last days in office, and I think this has tainted hers.
Well, before I give my view on the honour system, let me ask everyone a question and answer it honestly. If you was honoured or invited to be honoured, would you accept it?
No, journalists shouldn't take honours, in my view.
Would you?
Depends what for.
Does it?
Services to remain.
Yeah, services to remain.
But would you accept? Would you accept it?
I mean, I've never run into a burning building, so probably not.
Would you accept
This is something I grapple with every day, because I'm in such realistic likelihood going to be? No, I wouldn't accept. I certainly wouldn't accept an OBE or anything referencing the empire, and I can't see myself, though it's so likely to happen, accepting a peerage.
No, I've thought about this. For journalism, no. I do quite a lot for charity. If it was for charity,
that's different.
yes. For journalism, I don't think it seems right.
Let me be clear, just in case. If anyone wants to nominate me, damn right I would accept one. Thank you very much.
Michelle Dewberry.
And I would take all the perks that go with it. And I find all of this so hypocritical. It's unbelievable. Because actually, I think that awarding people for failure is an absolute joke. It's embarrassing.
I see. Sorry, I thought you were cross with me giving it.
I'm
right.
not cross with you.
Right, okay.
But what I'm saying is, some of these people that are getting these honours, they shouldn't be anywhere near it because all they're doing in the first place is their job, and they're doing it badly. They're doing it badly half the time, so they shouldn't be in there. But then what then happens is when people are pontificating about who should get one and who shouldn't, you get this whole criticism of the whole system, and everyone sits and goes, "This is such a terrible system," as we're all doing around this table. But then when it goes their way and actually they're awarded with one, they're in that House of Lords or they're wherever they are quicker than their feet will take them. And I find that so hypocritical.
If anyone's, it probably would be Afua who'd get one. Afua, it wasn't because she's written her books and she's done her work. She's not failed. It's what Afua's achieved. And my point at the very start is, and I appreciate you think differently about Nick, Timothy and Fiona, most of these people have, at the best, done pretty poorly or failed. Patrick McLaughlin has been awarded. He now goes up, I think only 650 people in the whole country have the award that he's got. He was the one who presided over the set when it all fell apart behind Mrs May and he gets another reward. He's already a sir. Yeah. Where does it bloody well end?
For me, it's the principle of transparency. It's the way in which it's conducted. I think it's good to reward people who do good things, not who fail. First of all, but even if we accept this system of honours and rewards and peerages, it's the way in which they're appointed, and it's completely lacks transparency. And I just don't see how it's compatible.
Can I go back to my first ever job as a journalist? It was on the Gloucestershire Echo in Cheltenham. The honours list was a sort of great joy because lollipop ladies, lollipop men were getting MBEs, OBs, people working in charity. It brought great joy. They were going to go to the palace. They might meet the Queen. They might meet Prince Charles. Lovely photographs. And that's what the honours list system should be about. Saluting our unsung heroes in the community. But MPs should not be automatically entitled to a knighthood when they've been an MP for 25 years. They've had enough perks.
I think there's an important element about in our society, who we put on a pedestal. For example, you've got Geoffrey Boycott after what he was convicted of, domestic abuse, who somehow managed to make it on the honours list. We've got Chris Brown, to broaden it out a little bit further, after what he did to Rihanna, beating her through, we've all seen the pictures, yet he's still famous and still seen as an idol by many. That is completely unacceptable.
So are we saying, just to broaden it out from Boycott, that if you've got a criminal conviction, because don't forget convictions get spent after a period of time depending on what they're for, but are we suggesting that if you've had a criminal conviction, you cannot be honoured?
No.
Well, but there's a huge amount of inconsistency. There are a lot of people who've been convicted of tax fraud who have been completely ruled out of ever receiving an honour because of that. Now, I agree with that, but I don't see why it's okay if you've committed a domestic violence offence.
It depends on the crime.
So have an honour, and not if you've committed a tax offence. That doesn't make any sense.
Can I take you back into the House of Lords? You will find on on the benches, you will find a convicted arsonist. You will find a peer who drove his car into somebody and killed them while he was texting on his phone. You'll find 3 or 4 peers who cheated on the House of Lords expenses, all went to prison. They're now all back in the House of Lords, legislating and claiming their tax money. How does that work?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
How can that be right?
Order.